Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit or Zappy here, back again with The Promised Neverland. We are on episode 5, and yeah, in the last episode, it was revealed that Ray was indeed the traitor. Now, I'm happy that I got it beforehand. Obviously, he was always up there, as the top suspect as who the traitor would be. There was just a lot of things that just didn't add up, I just felt like he knew a bit too much than he shouldn't have, and that he was letting on, and it was just all just adding up. And yeah, in the end it made sense. Especially, halfway through episode 4 when Norman was talking. Like, he gave the different locations for like where the rope would be, right? And that's how he would figure out who the traitor was. But like he said to Ray, he didn't give that information to Don Gilder like he said he was going to. So as soon as the rope was gone from any of those locations, it just meant that Ray was the only one that could have known where it was other than Norman. So yeah. And other than that, I think the only thing that really matters is Norman wants to escape on November the 8th. But that's the thing, is like, I'm not sure how much that really matters at this point, because they are not going to leave until they get the tracking chips sorted, right? And Ray was the one looking into that. So if he's just been outed as the traitor, then he could just stop it. It all depends on how Ray reacts. So there's not really a lot that I really need to get into in the pre-discussion, because it just depends on where this goes from here. We don't know. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like Ray is just being a traitor because it helps him get close and trusted with Isabella, and therefore he can be a double agent and betray her. But we'll have to wait and see. I hope that's the case, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, I think we're just going to get into episode 5. If you do want to watch episode 6 right now, you can go over to my Patreon and get the early access tier and watch episode 6 right away if you don't want to wait till next week. And there's also full length there if you want to watch the full length as well. So yeah, that's all I've got. So we're going to get in episode 5, see what we get. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, episode 5. Fuck's sake, bloody God, why, man? Why is Dawn being a fucking? It wasn't like you give it any even fucking time to mull it over. No, he just went immediately. God's sake! Like, this can just fuck up everything. It can fuck up everything. Oh man, like. Yeah, great. Okay, right, anyway, right, so we'll start off with the very beginning. So, I wrote down the mother's, like, sort of protected nature and, like, nurturing plants and stuff, because I've just had a fucking thought. I was talking about, like, in previous discussions on this show that, it's interesting, the dynamic between the mother that is very parently and loving and caring and stuff like that versus the one that is like that we see behind closed doors who seems very like evil and stuff. And I think the reason why, and I think I finally grasped it, is because they are plants, because they are seen as plants, and therefore, like, what do you do with a fucking plant? If you're a gardener, you protect it, you nurture it, and everything like that. You don't, it's not something that the mother is going to go around and cause stress to, you know what I mean, because it can affect their quality, if you will. So that is the reason why she probably is the way that she is, and why she keeps all the evil stuff behind closed doors. Yeah, so it's just similar to like a gardener not like stressing out their plants that they're growing and stuff, So yeah, I think that's I think that's how I've grasped it. I think I'm correct, and that's the reason why Isabella is the way that she is, and that why I couldn't really put a finger on it before, as to why she seems so caring and nurturing, yet she's able to just give them away like they're nothing, So yeah. Right, so yeah, the episode was 30/10/45, so yeah, the day after. I was wondering how they're going to do that, because, it started still in the 29th day, but I think they've done that before, though. I think it's just whatever, like, the episode, like, the day that takes up, like, the episode, like, the most, right? That's probably the title that they use. So yeah, we had very tense sort of back and forth between Norman and Ray in the first half, where Norman said that he'd suspected Ray back in episode 2, which I think that was the same one I did as well, right? Because I think that was when that's when the Sister Crone came up, and that's when at some point during it was brought up the idea of a traitor possibly being there. And yeah, it's like, you know, Norman, you know, getting the better of him and everything like that. These visuals that they do with like the kids, even the kids, like it's showing Ray with like evil face, you know what I mean? Like, but then he's talking about, you know, they're talking back and forth, and it's talking like Ray he's not doing it like he's not evil. He's basically saying that he did it for their sake and stuff like that. It's just because Ray figured it out beforehand, and there was nothing he could really do. But then you have, you know, the whole thing of like, I think the idea, I don't want to put it out there that I am certain of, yeah, I don't want to put it out there that I'm certain of the fact that Ray is just entirely selfish, because I'm not going to say that he is entirely selfish. This could just be a ploy, because these kids are fucking smart, right? So in my head, I'm like, well, this is what I should tell them right now, and not tell them my true feelings, right? Because it could easily be that. I feel like there was a few. It felt like the way that Ray was talking that there was back and forth between his personality, where, you know, he's got this evil face on and stuff like that, and he's not giving any reason as to why he is the traitor at the beginning. He's just letting Norman talk it out, and it's like, well, why would you do that? You know, like, why would you want to make him seem like you're the bad guy if you're telling the truth in saying that you wanted them to see the truth like he did. There are a lot of reasons as to why he could have wanted this. I think if I'm just going off this episode alone and not off any other like the previous episodes where I have said that I think there are other things at play with Ray where he's just given stuff, like he's just giving out things that he wants to say, like at the correct time. Because his talk with Norman was different to his with Emma. So if I'm just talking about this episode in particular, I would probably say, like, let's say I just watched this episode, I hadn't even seen the previous ones. I would assume that the thing that was most likely is that Ray is just selfish, and that because Emma and Norman are like, he values them as friends, but he doesn't value them above his own goals, and that therefore he knows that they are smart enough that in conjunction with them, they will be able to escape, right? And that's why he needed people like them to figure out the truth. And then he's saying stuff like, you know, well, in this case, I need you to trick Emma to Norman, right? He's saying that. Now, the reason why that is obviously because, well, first of all, they both know that Emma's not going to want to do that, right? So that's a one thing. But it also means that, you know, they aren't going to be able to escape unless Emma is fully on board. If she knew that was going to be the case, then she wouldn't do it. And she wouldn't go along with it. So I think the best thing that is happening in Ray's mind is, I'm not just saying like he's entirely selfish and he's doing this out of the best interest of him. Like, he's not entirely. Like, in the best thing that could happen to Ray in his mind is that Norman tricks Emma, and then, you know, at least them three get out, right? Because he does have some kind of bond with them. But I still think that if it was a case of, you know, like he says, you know, if it was him getting out, at the at the cost of them two, then he would take it, right? That is entirely based upon this episode. I think that's the best sort of outline I can get of what Ray's sort of thinking is. But then when he comes out and he talks to Emma, and Emma's basically saying, "Oh, so you did all this so that we would find the truth, but you had no way of it's not like you could have done anything sort of about it." And it's just it's such a different talk with her than it is with Norman. And the one thing I found interesting actually about it was Emma's, because Emma, I said during the reaction, when she did sort of change and become a bit more serious about what the situation was, is in the fact that oh shit, he was the traitor after all. Because there was a bit where she was a bit too going along with it, and she didn't have time to almost grieve about the fact that her friend was the traitor, It was interesting, and I think it's I think the interesting thing is, I think that most people that would be watching this, we would all say that, it's Norman and Ray are smart as hell. And I think it's easy to probably forget for a lot of people that Emma is, at this point in the story, she is smart as well. And the one thing that she took on board was Ray saying that, yeah, I want to get out with everyone. I think she is smart enough to realize that that just because he was figured out to be the traitor, why suddenly would that change Ray? Now we've got to remember, these kids have been together for a long time now. They would know each other a hell of a lot, especially these three. I think Emma would. I think she knows. I think she knows that it's not. It's because I think she knows. I think she's aware that Norman and Ray have already talked and figured this out beforehand, and because of that, Emma's able to sort of look over and see exactly Norman and the way he's acting, in conjunction with the fact that Ray's talking about now just suddenly changing his mind, which is something he wouldn't be prone to doing beforehand. And you have Norman skipping over words and stuff and being oh well, not being a bit as sort of certain with his words, not being as upfront about certain things. And I think she could probably tell. Now because I think that's going to come back up later. I really think it is. I think Emma has a way of, I think she's observant. I think that's probably the best word to describe it. Because she is the energetic one, and that she, it's easy to look at Ray and Norman as the sort of, the head boxes, the one with the big brains. I think it's easy to forget that Emma has that as well, but I think that in her way, a lot I was talking about how Norman's the strategist and Ray's the tactician, or the other way around, whichever way you want to fucking put it. I think that Emma's probably the observant one, able to discern certain things between the people that obviously she knows, that things that are out of character and don't really mix, and therefore she's able to come up with, she's able to figure stuff out because of that. So I think that is probably something that's going to come up again in the future. But we'll wait and see. And yeah, I liked the handshake thing, where well, it wasn't really a handshake, but she went up and grabbed Ray's hand. And normally when you do that as a way to comfort someone, she was saying that it must have been hard being able to send those people away, knowing that you're sending them to that horrible fate. but what it was like a mixture of like anger, hatred, disdain, like betrayed, forgiveness, sympathy, like all in one, while holding his, like, while clutching away at his hand, meant for like a sort of way for to comfort him, but then gripping it hard to, and yeah, it was interesting. It was a good little character moment for her, I think. It's a real, oh god, it's getting to a crazy dynamic now where Norman's in the middle, and then you have Ray on one hand who doesn't want to sacrifice, or wants to sacrifice others for their escape, because that's, if it's going to be in his selfish sort of desire to do so, then that's what he's going to do, versus Emma's like wanting to save everybody, and that's that. It's an interesting one, and I think because of that, I remember in previous episodes how I was saying that Ray is the interesting one, and he still is, like, but as of right now, as of this moment, Norman is, because he is the one in the middle, and therefore I think a lot depends on what he does now, right? The problem is that it's put him in a place, in a predicament that I'm scared for his life. Because I'm sure I've talked about this in one of the previous episode discussions. Because he is in the middle, and he knows from either side that Ray would want to, that if he was willing to give up his life for other kids to go ahead, and I could see him being the character to do that. I felt like he because of his character traits, I felt like this is kind of character traits I've seen before in other shows, where they are the sort of, they're very similar to Norman in a way that he is very calm and collected, and because of that, it's almost like you could say like he's the most well liked / respected one of the group between all of the characters, right? And all the kids. And that sort of character trait goes in line with one who would give up their life for someone else, and I feel like he's just, because of the place in which he's in right now, right in the middle. And actually, it's funny because I'm looking at this right now. I went back through, because there was this scene that I was struggling with, but now that I'm looking at it, I think that's supposed to be Emma, Norman, and Ray, right, with Norman in the middle, and I think that is what this is symbolizing. It's funny because I was just talking about it, and then I was just looking at it, and I was like, yeah, it makes it's just a visual way that I am looking at it. And it makes all the sense in the world. Like, he's the character that is in the middle, and he's the one that bridges the gap. And because of that, I feel like he's the one that is most at risk. Like, I think he's the character that out of the three would die, I think. And it makes for a story that, if Ray is totally selfish, and like I said before, if it does happen and Norman does die, there's a possibility for, like, obviously when that does happen, that Ray would realize maybe that it has a little redemption thing for Ray. I think if that would be the case, it would start off that, right? I could just see that happening, but we'll just have to wait and see. I have said that Norman just seems to be that kind of character that just could be one of the, if we're talking about stakes in the show, then him going would definitely, I could see it happening. But we'll have to see. Yeah, so one of the questions I did ask is, would Norman have left Ray behind had he not had that conversation with Emma? Because Norman had basically said that he'd suspected Ray beforehand, and that he had Ray being tested as well. It was then after that he went and talked to Emma about if you found out who the traitor was, would you still bring them with? And I think Norman, he went to ask that specifically and have that conversation with Emma because I think at that point, like he was preparing for the possibility that Ray was the traitor, and that he needed convincing that either what he was thinking was right or that he needed to change his mind. It is interesting because obviously, like I said before, with Norman being the sort of one that I think the character is like the most sort of respected, that he looks to Emma for that kind of comfort. Like it's not, Norman isn't like the it's interesting that even though in his head, like, to us, he could come up with anything and has all the plans and everything like that. And, I think Emma thinks that about Norman, but the fact that Norman talks with Emma about this kind of stuff, like, I think it says a lot that, like, Norman has this thing where he needs to be sure of what he's doing, and I don't think he does anything on his own. So you have that thing of like, he's sort of, he is the in-between between the two characters. So he's the most interesting one right now. So would he have left Ray behind had he not had that conversation? I mean, we saw him, like, he practically almost broke down, like, after Ray had left, because he didn't want to. It's something he didn't want to believe, but it's something that he sort of, he keeps a cool head and he keeps straight faced and he doesn't let the emotions get the better of him until until then. And yeah, it's just crazy. It's fucking crazy. Jesus Christ. Where the hell do we go from here? Right. So Ray has already broken his tracking device then, right? Is that what he was saying? Because he found a way to nullify his. So I'd imagine that, because that, I think he was saying that he was talking to, Isabella must obviously know about this and be fine with it. I'd imagine, right? Because obviously you'd be able to, unless he was just researching it and he's found out a way to nullify it, but he hasn't nullified his own. If that's the case, then he obviously hasn't told Isabella, because otherwise they would know, right? Like, he just wouldn't be able to be tracked and be like, well, why is this not the case, So yeah, and obviously he'd just be totally suspicious, and Isabella just wouldn't trust him. So maybe he hasn't broken his, but he has found out the way to do it. So yeah, yeah. But Ray was saying that he was able to gather certain things, and that they didn't explain from where. So I'm thinking that the reason why, like literally in the pre-discussion for episode 4 and the post-discussion for episode 3, where I'm basically saying like, why does Ray know all about this stuff from the outside when in reality he shouldn't know anything from the outside, is because Isabella's getting stuff from the outside and giving it to him. I think that's what it is, right? When he's saying that, I was able to get certain things, I was saying that Isabella's getting stuff from the outside and able to, like, because like Ray said, he was testing like how much he could get and how much he could get away with, kind of thing. So yeah, yeah. So we had Ray. Here's the thing, right? Like, so I mean, just so we don't get too far away from it. So yeah, this whole thing. So before this scene, you obviously had Ray exit, and then you had Norman inside. He sat on the bed, and it's like they both realized something at the same time. And I wonder if it was just. I think it was just both of them realizing that they'd like, it's my mate that did this. Like, I think it's like Norman just like, because when he figured out that Ray was the traitor, like he was in full like interrogative mode kind of thing. When Ray left, I guess he had time to just fully appreciate what the fuck had just happened, and then that's what he meant. Like when he was like you know what I mean? Like it eventually like hit him to the point where like he was like, I can't believe it. And then I think because Ray like in like a second later, it was pretty much simultaneous. Like Ray, I think looking at the picture and then being like, what did you? Yeah, I think he tutted, right? I think it was like that because he was like, but. Yeah, you see, this is the reason why I don't think Ray is like. Fuck's sake. Fuck's sake. I think Ray is just a realist, and I don't think he's like. But to be able to be straight faced and to just say ditch the rest, like ditch the young kids. So the point what they're not going to have any. Because he said like trick Emma and ditch anyone that isn't Don or Gilda. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. No, I couldn't do it. I would be fucking. I would be Emma in this situation. Even being a fucking like, because I generally consider myself a realist anyway, but it's not the fact of like trying to escape. It's almost like if I can't, if I, it's like because I think Emma quoted this as like. This was one of Emma's quotes. It's like, if I can't escape with everyone, then I'm not escaping. And I would do the same. I couldn't leave kids behind, man. I couldn't do it. It's just the fact that Ray is straight faced while doing it, and it's just like, I understand and I get the realist point. It's like, yeah, it's not possible. Well, but like that's the thing is the way that Ray looks at it. He doesn't see it as like. But then again, maybe with Ray, maybe it's not as like clear cut. Like he's not obviously, he's obviously the least emotional one out of the lot. He doesn't have much emotion going for him. So maybe it's one of those things that like he would have to be in that situation to realize this is not good. Like let's say he was on top of the wall and it was like this was it, the choice, the chance to ditch the kids, like. Maybe that's what it would take for him just to sit there and go, I can't do this, I can't ditch them. Maybe that's what it is. But you know, that's the thing. That's the thing that's great about shows that, you know, with good characters is that you start them out with flaws and then you build up to that like development over time is what makes them interesting characters to begin with. So, you know, it's just one of those things that we'll just have to look out for and see what happens with Ray. So yeah. So yeah, we had Ray meet up with Isabella, and interestingly enough as well, he was also looking, he was also like keeping an eye on Sister Crone as well. So it's something which Isabella's already knowing exactly what Crone's up to and stuff like that, and Ray's also, you know, looking out on that. It's interesting that he says like stuff like, you know, you know, I have control over Isabella, but so it's interesting then in that case. At the point we're at now, Sister Crone is the biggest threat right now. If she finds out, that's bad. And I think I know why. I think because I was talking about this before, like I don't see how they could just get away with killing someone. So if someone found out, what do they do? You know? Yeah. Yeah, and the last thing I have is Gilda showing that she has smarts as well with the secret door. Basically, like you know, with Don just being like, it's actually it is surprising that Don is that is of that age, because that would have to mean that he has some smarts as well. I guess maybe he does, but there's something about, you know, because he is like emotionally invested in this whole thing, and it's Connie and stuff, that maybe that's just overpowering like any real, like, you know, real sensible logical thought process that, you know, and maybe that's why he's, you know, but he's just bashing the thing like even if you have some smarts, I think you would be able to figure out that thing. Because I was thinking, like, maybe it's not a pull, maybe it is a slide. But yeah, Gildar figured that out. It's like it's able to push it in there. We don't know who's coming through. I mean, I feel like it can only be one of 5 people. I feel like it can only be Isabella, Sister Crone, or it could be Ray, Norman, or Emma. Because, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if Ray, Norman, and Emma would, you know, not trust with Don being emotionally invested. Like, you know, they could just go out and follow him and see what he's doing. So it could be that. And if that's the case, well, fuck you, cliffhangers. But, you know, they can't go anywhere now, right? I mean, even if they were to go into the secret room, like, it's not. I don't think you can easily. And obviously, if they would hear the fucking thing rolling back through and door opening, closing, and yeah, they just don't have time, do they? They're gonna get. Fuck's sake. I was thinking, like, this is gonna, you know what I mean? If Dawn ends up getting Gildar killed, I swear to fuck. It's fucking hell, man. Why can't you just play the patient game? You immediately fucked it. Anyway, that's all I've got. So yeah, again, if you want to watch episode 6 immediately, then you can go over to my Patreon right now and get the early access tier and watch episode 6 right now. And yeah, there's full length and everything as well. But yeah, that's all I've got for this episode. So thank you for watching. In the description below, I've linked certain things. One of them is the Discord, so you can get yourself over there. And Patreon, like I said, early access, $5 a month gives you access to shows a week early, and you get 4 episodes of Hunt x Hunt every week. There's obviously full length there as well. And there's other tiers where you can pay to have certain shows reacted to as well. So yeah, go over, have a look at those. And yeah, that's all I've got. So thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.